That fat, slobbering beast is a registered nuisance, and if you don't get rid of it, Dr. Thorne, I will make sure it's gotten rid of for you." The voice, a grating symphony of entitlement and cheap perfume, belonged to Karen, the self-appointed queen of Oak Haven Estates and the president of its homeowners association. She stood on my perfectly manicured lawn, her plus-size frame squeezed into a lurid pink tracksuit, one pudgy finger stabbing the air towards my back porch where Sunny, my three-legged golden retriever, was sleeping in a patch of afternoon sun. The fat, slobbering beast had just lifted his head, given a lazy tail thump against the deck, and gone back to dreaming of squirrels. The real menace, however, was standing right in front of me. I watched the flicker of triumphant malice in her eyes as the distinctive rumble of a heavy-duty truck engine grew louder, turning onto our quiet cul-de-sac. It was a Ford F-250, white with the green and gold crest of the County Animal Services on the door. My blood didn't run cold. It turned to ice, the kind of focused, crystalline sharpness I hadn't felt since my last tour. This wasn't about a dog. This was a declaration of war. Karen's smile widened into a grotesque smirk as a young officer, no older than my own daughter's high school friends, stepped out of the truck. He looked nervous, his hand hovering over the clipboard in his hand as he approached the unfolding suburban drama. Karen puffed out her chest, ready to deliver the keynote address at her own victory parade. "Officer," she began, her voice dripping with saccharine concern. "I'm Karen Miller, the HOA president. I called about a dangerous animal at this residence. It's a vicious, aggressive dog, possibly a fighting breed, and this gentleman refuses to secure it." The officer glanced from her to me, then to the sleeping golden lump on the porch. He then looked past Sunny, his eyes locking for a moment on the shadow moving just inside the sliding glass door. A sleek, muscular shape of black and tan fur, watching the proceedings with an unnerving stillness. That was Ragnar. And if Sunny was the heart of our family, Ragnar was its guardian. The officer's eyes finally met mine, and a strange expression crossed his face, a dawning flicker of recognition, followed by a wave of pure, unadulterated panic. His gaze dropped to my simple gray t-shirt and cargo shorts, as if expecting a uniform, then shot back to my face. His mouth opened, then closed. He knew. He knew exactly who I was. And in that moment, Karen's carefully constructed world of petty tyranny began to fracture. She just didn't know it yet. She thought she had cornered a quiet veteran in his suburban cage, but she had just kicked a hornet's nest tended by the one man who licensed the exterminators. Before we dive into the beautiful, systematic dismantling of Karen's little empire, do me a favor. If you love stories where entitlement gets slapped in the face by competence and a whole lot of paperwork, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel. And when you're done, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from, and if you have your own HOA nightmare, I want to hear it. Misery loves company, but victory loves an audience. Now back to the show. To understand why this moment felt like a lit fuse, you have to understand my life before Oak Haven. I'm Dr. Marcus Thorne. For 20 years, I was a veterinarian in the United States Marine Corps, rising through the ranks to oversee the health and deployment readiness of entire kennels of military working dogs. These weren't pets. They were soldiers with paws, specialists in explosive detection, tracking, and patrol. My job was to keep them in peak condition, to patch them up when they were hurt, and sometimes to make the agonizing decision that their service was over. Ragnar, my Belgian Malinois, was one of my last charges. He'd served 3 tours, saved more lives than he'd ever know, and was retired out with a case of PTSD that manifested as a deep distrust of loud noises and unexpected chaos, a sentiment I deeply shared. When I retired, I adopted him. He was my partner, a living, breathing reminder of the world I'd left behind, and the anchor of my new one. My wife, Sarah, a high school history teacher with a saint's patience, found us the house in Oak Haven Estates. It was everything we were supposed to want. Good schools for our 14-year-old daughter, Lily, pristine lawns, and a sense of quiet order. For me, it was too quiet, too orderly. The cookie-cutter houses felt like a beautifully designed prison camp. But Sarah and Lily loved it, and their happiness was the entire mission now. Sunny, the three-legged golden, was Lily's project. She had volunteered at the county shelter and fallen in love with the goofy, perpetually optimistic dog who'd lost a leg in a car accident. He was the opposite of Ragnar in every way, open, trusting, and utterly clumsy. Together, they balanced our home. Ragnar was the disciplined sentinel. Sunny was the ambassador of joy. When we moved in, we received the welcome basket and the binder. The basket had stale muffins. The binder was 3 inches thick, bound in laminate, and bore the title Oak Haven Estates Homeowners Association, Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic sadism, detailing everything from the approved shades of beige for exterior paint to the maximum allowable height of a garden gnome. I read it cover to cover, the same way I'd read enemy terrain maps. I highlighted sections, made notes in the margins. My military training taught me one thing above all: know the rules of engagement. I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that this binder would become a weapon. And I knew the first time I saw Karen Miller holding court by the community pool, exactly who would be wielding it. The first volley wasn't about the dogs. It was far more insidious. 2 weeks after we moved in, a crisp envelope appeared taped to our front door. It was a formal notice of violation. Our crime: the garbage cans were visible from the street. According to Section 4, Paragraph 7b, Subsection 3, refused containers had to be stored in a manner completely screened from public view. I had left them at the side of the house after collection, behind a large azalea bush. From the street, you could, if you were standing on your tiptoes at a very specific angle, glimpse about 4 inches of black plastic. I took a photo from the street, printed it, and attached it to a polite note explaining that the cans were, by any reasonable definition, screened. I placed it in the HOA drop box. The next week, another notice, this time with a $50 fine. The offense: failure to cure previous violation. I paid the fine. It wasn't an admission of guilt. It was a purchase of data. I now had a canceled check and a documented interaction. That weekend, I built a small, tasteful cedar enclosure for the cans, submitting the design,